Hello, this is Dr. Mercola, and today I want to talk to you about the most significant opportunity that you and I may have in our lifetime to improve not only our health but the long-term sustainability of our environment. What I'm talking about is an event that is taking place right now, this very minute. It's an event that will bring nearly 1 million signatures to county clerk's offices in all 58 counties in California, a movement that I'm hoping will so inspire you that you'll want to be part of this and join it too, just as I have. Now, these signatures were gathered by thousands of dedicated volunteers and supporters who have coordinated their efforts over the past few months with one goal in mind: to label genetically engineered foods. Now, this initiative, this California ballot initiative, will be the first state in the entire United States to require mandatory labeling of genetically engineered foods and food ingredients, and to outlaw the labeling of GMO tainted foods being labeled as natural. But this just isn't about California. California, as you know, is the largest state in the U.S., and it boasts the 8th largest economy in the entire world. Now, it's important to understand why we worked with so many partners to create this initiative in California, because there's a method to our madness. You see, the biotech industry spends tens of millions of dollars every year and hundreds of millions over decades lobbying state and federal officials. They offer jobs to government employees and have previous employees working in very important government positions in the federal regulatory agencies, in which this revolving door continues over and over. So these plans are not drawn up overnight. The biotech companies have established this power and control over the course of decades. It's a very sophisticated and clever strategy. And that's why we need to take this vote to the people and out of the hands of politicians. Because even when a state like Vermont, which just recently, a few weeks ago, had the support nearly unanimously of the state officials to pass a similar law, they caved in when they were threatened for lawsuits from Monsanto. So the only way the U.S. will join the other 40-plus countries that currently require labeling of genetically engineered foods is to bypass these elected officials and pass a citizens' initiative. The entire European Union requires labeling, and even China requires it. This is an authentic grassroots effort to get genetically engineered foods labeled everywhere in the U.S. I can't stress enough what a win for this initiative would mean to both sides. For people want to know what's in their food and who believe it should be their right to choose what foods they want to eat, it would be a huge and massive victory. But for big agriculture and the GMO biotech industry, particularly Monsanto, it would be a disastrous blow, possibly their worst nightmare ever, since they've banked everything they've got on controlling the world's food sources through their genetic engineering. In a nutshell, for you and me and the rest of the United States, this is about taking back our democracy and restoring Americans' fundamental right to know what's in our food. It's not an understatement to say that this is the food fight of our lives. It seems so simple, so logical. Why shouldn't we know what's in our food? Better yet, why would Monsanto and other genetically engineered seed producers try to keep that knowledge from us? But that's what they're doing. They don't want people to know which foods are genetically engineered or which products have GMO ingredients in them. And they haven't ever wanted you to know. In fact, as far back as 1994, nearly 20 years ago, when this topic first came up, the president of Ask Grow Seeds was so against it that he actually blurted out the real reason why these companies don't want you to know the truth about genetically engineered foods. And that was this: if you put a label on genetically engineered food, you might as well put a skull and crossbones on it. That's right. The individual was Norman Braxick, who was president of Ask Grow Seeds, a subsidiary of Monsanto. He actually said that publicly, and it was reported in the Kansas City Star. And ever since, Monsanto, Ask Grow, Dow, Cargill, and all of their minions have been fighting against labeling laws anywhere and everywhere that have been discussed and brought up for possible legislative ruling. And let me tell you what, they're fighting this big time. They don't stop at anything to get their way. They will launch attacks against me and the other major supporters of this initiative. They will spread lies and propaganda about the initiatives itself. We're expecting big biotech to spend tens of millions of dollars to launch negative campaign ads about this initiative and its supporters when it goes up for a vote in California in November. So the bottom line is this: Monsanto and its minions will do anything it takes to fight this initiative. People are concerned that genetically engineered crops are not only threatening the biodiversity of nature and the environment, but are creating serious threats to animal and human health. Bees and butterflies are dying, and super pests and super weeds are popping up everywhere. There's tens of millions of acres with super weeds. And for what? Contrary to the claim of feeding the world, genetic engineering has not increased the yield of crops. And instead of helping poverty-stricken farmers in third world countries grow themselves out of debt, genetically engineered crops have literally driven them to their graves. And for proof of this, all you have to do is look at India, where tens, if not hundreds of thousands of farmers have committed suicide in the wake of this crippling, spiraling debt that the genetically engineered crops have caused them. So after decades of allowing corporations like Monsanto to buy off our politicians and intimidate everyone from small farmers to lawmakers, I'm asking you to help take on Monsanto and fight back for our food rights as a nation. You can bet your bottom dollar that Monsanto will spend whatever it takes to try and beat us. They've already enrolled the lawyers that held big tobacco for so many years to fight us. They'll try to convince voters in California that GMOs are not dangerous through very expensive ads on TV, radio, newspaper, and the internet. They're going to try to convince voters that labeling genetically engineered foods will actually cause food prices to rise even higher than they are today. But that's a lie. You probably even see some of these ads when you're driving down the road one day and see messages on billboards that this negative propaganda about how labeling is all wrong and that labeling would be too confusing for consumers. But don't believe it. It's just lies. Remember, it's propaganda, and they're counting on us to believe their lies. But they're not counting on is that everyone else in this country, is that they wage this war against the millions against Monsanto movement and our food freedoms. Let me say that again because it's so crucial. They're counting on you to believe whatever they spew out in the next few months as they fight for their GMO lives. The one thing they're not counting on, however, is for millions of people to join together and win this battle, a true David versus Goliath struggle. So some very dedicated and concerned people have come together to bring this initiative to the table. It's the true Achilles heel of biotech where they can't buy their support. The time has come to rise up and win this war, and that's why we need your help even more by donating whatever you can to the millions against Monsanto efforts. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to or which candidates you support. The right to know issue belongs to all of us. It's about our food, our health, and our environment. We're all in this together. That's why together we're going to raise $1 million in the next few weeks to help pass this law and shift the balance of power back to the people. I believe in this enough to put my money where my mouth is. We want to raise $1 million to fight back against Monsanto, and with your help, I believe we can do that. But before I say goodbye, I want to tell you about an added incentive that Mercola.com and a group of leading organic companies in the industry, including Nature's Path, Lundberg Family Farms, and Eden Foods, are promising in this $1 million campaign. If the $1 million goal for this campaign is reached by May 26th, we are promising to match that $1 million dollar for dollar out of our own pockets. That's just how much we believe in this issue and great cause. So if you've already donated to this critical campaign, as I have, I thank you. But if you haven't, I'm asking you to please consider giving whatever you can and becoming one of the millions who are actively supporting and doing something about taking back our food rights. It's time to drop the money bomb on Monsanto by joining with hundreds of thousands of people who are feeling similarly.